Just when did the Sermon on the Mountain turn into a shouting match? Well, some signatures out there are suggesting an oncoming eviction party as a marriage tumbles faster than it came about. Reketu Manuo, a song would appropriately go in Murima speak. And so is it over for William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua and the bridal party? We're on the impeachment watch tonight. And Shah is on the way. You know what that means, right? For 1,000 shillings, you and your entire family can finally sort out that dentist's appointment. It's a shower of numbers on Shah. On Sam's sense, do Kenyans make sense of those big deals before they happen? Jamila's memo suggests that it's only possible if you learn to chew gum and scale the stairs at the same time. Kaikai's Kicker welcomes the latest yarn in police shooting tales. And on my take, just how low is our trust of government intentions? Afadhali det. The gang is here.
Now, supposing that you get elected in August, and somewhere down the road, 2 years, 3 years, you have a problem with your deputy, Bwana Rigathi Gachagua, for whatever reason, and you disagree completely, almost in the same manner that has happened right now, whichever direction it comes from. What are you going to do?
I want to tell you, Joe, that what you have said will never happen. It will not happen.
It doesn't just depend on yourself.
I want to tell you that I will not allow, for example, my running mate or my deputy president to be humiliated by junior staff. I would not want a situation where clear responsibility. In fact, I have said it as much, and I have committed myself in writing that there are responsibilities my deputy will carry. Even when we had a vice president always chaired cabinet committees, always did certain things. And I want to promise you that my deputy president will be a very busy person.
But Bwana DP, many Kenyans will remember the relationship you had with President Kenyatta at the start. You wore the same sort of shirts. You interviewed CSS together. You did many things together.
I think you will not get very far, Joe, with this unless you go and ask Uhuru Kenyatta.
No. I'm asking the deputy president.
Because I have told you.
You are seeking to be president of Kenya.
Yes. I have told you what I will do with my deputy president. I have put it in writing that the first assignment
if he goes rogue, what would you do? Because you can't control what he will do.
The first assignment, if my deputy president goes rogue, there is the law. If he, for example, abuses his office, there is the law. The law will take its course. If he runs, if he does things that are unconstitutional, there is a way a deputy president is dealt with by the law. But I want to promise you that I will do everything possible to make sure the deputy president's office, which is a constitutional office, is a functional office that serves the people of Kenya.
Never say never, at least not in the world of politics. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. The hashtag is NewsGang at Citizen TV Kenya. From June 12th, 2022 to September of 2024, just a little over 2 years. How far have things come, Sam?
It's actually shorter than that, if you are to believe what the deputy president says, because when we spoke to him on Friday, he was talking about he has only worked for a year, that things changed thereafter. He's been mistreated. He's been insulted in the presence of the president at meetings that probably he's not in attendance. And he says that President Ruto, when he was deputy, actually had better time because he was allowed to work for a whole 5 years. That things changed during their second term. If you listen to the deputy president speak, even when he did just the other day, I think he was visiting Githurai, he was saying that, Mr. President, just allow me to finish the remaining 3 years. Allow me to work. If you have any other plans ahead of you, then it's okay, but at least for now, allow me to work, end of quote. And it's quite interesting that this is coming at a time that there's been all this manner of allegations of people saying that there's an impeachment coming, there's not an impeachment coming. And you look at even what the deputy president was saying on the night of Friday, referencing a lot of situations to an extent that he says that he's no longer now allowed to even know where the president is going. I mean, if you do not know where your boss is and you need to accompany him, then I wonder what you're supposed to do. And of course, you see him explaining that there's a diary of the president that shows these are the series of events that are supposed to be taken for the next few days to weeks. He has no access to that. And I think it's best we listen to the deputy president explaining how he was removed from a platform that talks about the diary of the president.
No, I myself, I was removed. My private secretary was removed. My chief of staff was removed. So we have no access to the president's diary. The private secretary to the president. Yeah, he's called Mayo. I'll show you. I was looking for my phone. I wanted to show you. He removed me. So once we are not there, then we don't know what's going on. So let no Kenyan. And let those people in State House who are trying to say that I don't attend meetings, let them return me in the page so that I know what the president is doing, where he's going, what time, so that I'm able to align and give him support, as I've always been doing. But I cannot do it when I don't have access to that information.
So, yeah, so he was looking for his phone, he said, to show you. Now, we must talk about the fact that initially it's the conversation that you had with him started out, you know, fairly normal. In fact, it would seem the tone was different at the start of it. Like, you know, nothing's wrong, we're working. And then somewhere halfway, you know, the tone of it became different. So did he finally show you his phone?
Wow, what a question.
To show you whether, you know, about this supposed removal from a WhatsApp group. What I'm trying to ask is, tell us about how this conversation went. Well, what his demeanor was. I mean, you know, there's
behind the scenes, Mambie.
Yes, behind the scenes. Yeah, we're looking for BTS now.
Well, it was a very interesting evening, I must say, because we started out on a review of the activities of the day, because you recall that the deputy president, alongside some few leaders, were in Nairobi, visiting Wakulima Market and speaking to the people there. And we were asking the question of why he decides to use his native language in a market that ideally has also members from different communities that may not necessarily understand the language. And of course, after the defense, you could see that along the way, who's very guarded, very keen on what he's saying. But when we go to the question about the relationship of the deputy president with the president, I'm still saying it's good. Yeah. But eventually, now when you go to the meat of it, you saw him opening up. And very personal, I must say. And I've seen people raising questions that probably he was just saying hearsay. But when you looked at the deputy president in the minutes to 8 o'clock and minutes after 8 o'clock, that is the real feel of what the deputy president is at as we speak, or rather as we spoke that Friday, because it became very intense. You look at his eyes, the focus was different. His voice, the tone went down a little bit. This is something that means something to him. And I have to say here that the conversation, because I think someone else shared an image on social media indicating that actually everyone who belonged to that group was removed, and it is because it needed to be closed. That was an explanation.
Yeah.
But I can confirm here that indeed those removals happened. It appears like everybody who was a member of that WhatsApp group, including the president, based on what you can see, was removed. What is not clear is whether after removal
they went to another group.
They stayed out, or a new group was constituted,
right,
or the same group was reconvened so that conversations can continue. Nobody has that information. Of course, the deputy president does not know that, or may not know that, bearing in mind.
Anything to do with the one government approach?
Well, that's a good question, because also realize that people have been making fun of that he's whining because he's being removed from WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But let's face it here, how do people communicate today?
Yeah.
Even very important conversations are held on WhatsApp. Coordination of different things is done on WhatsApp.
You know, court servings can be done on WhatsApp, huh?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting. So really, the take-home from that conversation was it had gotten to what it is, and it's been a long journey for them to get to where they are. When you listen to the deputy president even talking about the meeting that was in Nyeri, remember at the AIPCA church event, you know it, right?
Yes.
And that seat that was vacant for a very long time.
Yeah.
He referenced it and talked about even if you had to raise that question, and a lot of explanation he had done to make sure that his boss knows that he's at a different church.
And he said he was representing his boss.
Exactly. But then you also look at the event in Kirinyaga where Governor Iguru was presenting a donation reportedly from the president, and the deputy president is in attendance. All those that tell to the sense that will tell you that things are not working as they should. But also, I've also heard of people saying that he has been calling for this impeachment. Let's give it to him. I think it's just a diversion. There has been a lot of planning that has been going on behind the scenes that the deputy president must have gotten wind of it.
Yeah.
Even Gitu talks about umetoka mbali, but hiyo kutoka mbali is not kwa muda mrefu. Remember, we keep saying that it's just barely 2 years since this government came into office. And I think, Yvonne, for me, I remember how the deputy president's demeanor and speech and general conduct was during the campaigns and then after they were sworn in. And there's this shareholder narrative that is remembered by many because of what he said, how many times he said it, and the fact that he was able to say it in the presence of the president who had sworn to protect and uphold the rule of law and be a president for Wakenya wote. So I think before we continue, can I listen to the shares in government soundbite as we continue, and then the one about shareholder government.
Rais ako pale, niko hapo, huyu Felix ako hapo. Rais mnamjua, mimi mnanijua msimamo yangu ya kwamba watoto wakiwa wengi kuna wale kwanza ya kuangaliwa, si mnajua. Sasa huyu Felix ako pale ndio mwenye kuunganisha mawaya. Mambo iko sawa, chakula iko jikoni karibu kuiva, watoto ni wengi, chakula ni kidogo, iko watoto ya nyumbani, iko ajirani, iko namna hiyo, na nyinyi mtulie. Chakula ikiiva sisi ndio wenye kupakua, na watoto tunawajua kwa sura na kwa msimamo. Hii serikali ni kampuni na ni ya shares, si ndio? Ni ya shares. Kuna wenye kampuni, wale wako na shares mingi, kuna wale wako na chache, kuna wale hawana. Sasa nyinyi mliinvest kwa hii kampuni ya William Ruto na Rigathi Gachagua. Sasa lazima mvune. Yule ambaye alipanda atafanya nini? Simulipanda? Simuliamuka mapema? Mukasema mutaki kusikia mambo ya ile system na nini? Muka invest, mukapanda, mukapalilia, mukaweka mbolea, mukamwagilia maji, wakati ya kuvuna ndio huu. Na itakuwa namna hiyo. Najua wengine wananikashifu ati mimi nasema ati wale walipanda wavune kwanza. Iko makosa? Iko makosa? Hata hao watavuna, lakini wangoje. Si wale walipanda na wavune kwanza. Wakishavuna wavune, ile tabaki kidogo, wale hawakupanda waingie, watafute huko nini, ile itapatikana wachukue, wakwende. Si iko namna hiyo? Na itakuwa namna hiyo. Ndio watu wakipiga kura waelewe hii kura ni kusema nini. Hii kura iko na maana. Nyinyi hamwezi piga kelele huko, mpige kelele. Mnasema William Ruto ni bure, hawezi, mnaita yeye majina, alafu akipata, akigawa, mnapiga laini ati mko pale mbele. Ati mnataka mpite wale walisema anafaa ati mkue pale mbele. Inawezekana? Mimi kazi yangu pale kwa ikulu ni hiyo. Ni kupanga hiyo laini. Hapo ni kazi mimi napanga hapo.
I think it would be important to remember this, Yvonne, that these two bites were said almost exactly a year apart. The first soundbite was on February 24th, 2024, and the second one was on February 20th, 2023. That was his narrative for a whole year. I just need to remind the Deputy President now and everyone else that we now have a broad-based government. Those people he was talking about at the time, ambao hawana shares kwa serikali, wako kwa serikali hivi sasa. And that's the politics that we see in this country now. And his tone of voice back then, compared to the interview he had with Sam Gituku, are totally different. Completely different. Shows maybe the frustrations he feels he's under. But then, Yvonne, remember Minongono and issues between the president and his deputy, the cracks, we use that word cracks, were emerging. Before the June protests, I remember some of his allies, including, I think, Nyeri governor, spoke about this before the protest. And remember the whole thing started wakati ule wa burial and the late General Ogola akisema hakupewa ndege and all that. Hakumepatiwa ile hadhi anastahili kama deputy president. And then June happened in July, and then of course we had to see him and the president together with the situation that the country was finding itself in. But then now come to what we're seeing now. Even what I find very interesting is that leaders are out there airing their dirty laundry. I say that because wale ambao hawamuungi mkono wanasema peupe, wale ambao wanamuunga mkono wanasema peupe, kiasi cha kwamba hakuna kuficha feelings. The same zeal that was used to say all manner of things during campaigns and after, and talking about how the previous government was and how bad things were, is the same zeal that is being used now to fight each other, showing us very clearly who is in what camp. Village meetings the weekend, Yvonne, are being turned into an arena ya kusema tutafanya hivi na vile. If we can listen to Deputy Speaker Gladys Bos-Sholei speaking, we can continue with this.
Mimi mwenyewe nitakupeleka nyumbani. I am putting you, Rigathi Gachagua, on notice. You are going to be impeached. I can confirm that to you today. And I shall be in charge of that impeachment myself.
How wakazi walikuwa wamekaa hapo, what do they have to do with your issues and your wrangles and your impeachment? There is due process. Katika sheria, ukitaka kumuondoa, do that. In fact, it upset me today, and we'll talk about it a bit more, that even at the burial of the 21 children who died in the fire in school in Russia, this issue came up as such a somber, sad event that they had to talk about this. If you're planning to impeach him, if you're collecting signatures, do it, and then take the process forward. Come nenda bungeni and deni huko. But Yvonne, for me, it's how different and how quickly things change in this country. That soundbite of February 24th, 2024. Yeah. And we're in September, and mambo yamesambaratika.
And where things are now. But, you know, Jamila raises a point about how daggers are drawn and, you know, people are on different sides. But I also find it interesting that you're hearing statements like those coming from the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, whom we understand has been elected, and on you know, whichever platform. But on a matter such as this, that will eventually come to the National Assembly, if it does, if they collect the signatures that they say they will or plan to, or if they're able to garner the number that is required, it's 117, I believe. This will now become a matter that will need to be canvassed in the National Assembly. And the role of the Deputy Speaker of the House in this one would be what exactly, considering now that the holder of that office, Lena, says that she will personally oversee this. Where is the line between party and such an important role as Deputy Speaker? How will she preside over an issue such as this, the debate over it, you know?
Yvonne, if lines mattered, we would not be seeing what we are seeing at the presidency today, because lines are about, first of all, constitutional restraints, and then two, even your own just manners as a person. And we're not seeing that restraint. And that's why Gladys Sholay Boss, who is the Deputy Speaker, climbed down very quickly, 2 levels. Remember, most of her speech there was also in her native Kalenjin language. So there's a lot of dumping down before you participate in some of these conversations, because those lines don't matter. We are here because those lines stopped counting. And
Did they ever?
Yeah, somewhere down the line. I mean, when you look at sophisticated democracies, they've gone through many, many years.
No, I mean here.
Yes, we need time. We need time. The evolution has to happen. In fact, I mean that almost literally, because the quality of the politician also needs to change. The relationship between the politician and civility, the politician and the constitution, we need to improve. And I think further down the line, we will actually have people who will respect those officers, who will know that it's not okay to conduct yourself in a certain way. And talking of that, Kenyans may just quickly forget, even as we get into the heat of the impeachment, that Rigathi Gachagua is a true successor. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is a true successor to Deputy President William Ruto. This is the script we've witnessed for over 10 years now. This is exactly the kind of scenario we had in the previous arrangement of Ruto, because we had a deputy president who was not in a good relationship with his boss. And so here comes Gachagua. Only that what the difference we are witnessing is, while Uhuru Kenyatta did nothing about his deputy president, William Ruto is doing something about his troublesome deputy president. And what we are witnessing is, we've seen a number of signatures out there, hoping those are the authentic signatures that will then take the motion to Parliament to begin the process, which will be the first time that we are executing affairs this way. Because in the history of this country, we've never removed a vice president or deputy president through impeachment. There was an implied one in 1966 when Tom Mboya went to Limuru conference and decided to create many positions of vice president, made it a regional position. That is to force Jaramogi Oginga Odinga to resign. And actually the bait worked. He resigned. And we've not seen impeachment. This is the first time under this constitution that we are going to see the House involving itself with Article 150 of the Constitution on the removal of the deputy president. But I don't want us to jump the gun, because the motion has not been tabled yet. It has to be tabled before the National Assembly and then debated. It has to garner a 2/3 majority. Then the Senate is alerted on what needs to happen next. When the Senate Speaker is alerted, then he'll convene the House, the Senate, and then the Senate will form a committee. Usually the number is 11, so that committee will then work as a trial chamber where they'll listen to the charges and then report back to the House on their decision, and then the House will again vote, and again it's a 2/3 majority for it to then adopt a report removing or not removing the deputy president. But just a point to note, we've been here before, not in terms of the impeachment, but there was a vice president that was forced out of office. And again, it took regional pressure. And we're talking about Josephat Karanja, who was vice president of President Moi in 1989. and he was forced out. There was a motion of no confidence by David Mwenje, Member of Parliament for Embakasi. And you remember, and if you've, you must have read about it, about how it went down to very personal issues.
Yeah.
Like some members of Parliament were saying that this is a kneel before me Vice President. Oof. They claimed that Dr. Josephat Karanja, an academic, was forcing members of Parliament to kneel before him. Now, I'm hearing something like that as well. Maybe we'll hear a bit more of that when the motion comes to the House.
And that's the thing about impeachment motions, at least from what we have seen with governors that have been impeached, because at least at that level we've sort of tested that aspect of the Constitution. And in as much as, yes, of course, there's a legal threshold that must be met before you can say, okay, these are the reasons we're doing it. But it's as much a political process as anything. And so, I mean, if you look at the impeachment of Governor Kawira, even before her, the impeachment of Governor Wambora, you tend to hear some very personal things that are said, and some of them, you know, including even now what we're hearing about, you know, being removed from a WhatsApp group, and people say these things are petty. But typically when a relationship breaks down, it's the small things, you know, that are the ones that begin to tear apart, you know, a relationship. And so I guess the politics of all of this, there will be the legal threshold, as the, you know, abuse of office, corruption, and all of that is set out in the Constitution. But I mean, clearly there's something has gone terribly wrong, you know, behind the scenes. And so we get to see some of that. And, you know, just to mention with Dr. Josephat Karanja, you know, his security also was withdrawn at some point, you know, before that. And it's all the same tactics that you see happening, you know, right now when somebody does or says something that those in power are not pleased with. But then, of course, we will wait to see if there's an impeachment motion. But right now there's what we're hearing as a censure motion. And maybe this is also the path towards that, or, you know, just something to vent or test the waters, who knows. Let's listen to Senator Mungatana announcing a censure motion against the Deputy President. Then we can talk about what that is and how different it is from impeachment.
Hivi tunavyoendelea ni sawa? Makamu wa rais wa Kenya wanafaa wafanye hivi, kwamba ukitoka sehemu ya pwani, basi wewe ni kupigania pwani peke yake na wengine wote wasahaulike. Wewe ukitoka sehemu ya Northeastern ama jimbo la Ufa ama Nairobi, kazi yako wewe ni kuzungumza na kutembea na kufanya mambo hapo, sio Kenya mzima. Na tunataka tuongee, je, hivi unavyoendelea sasa ni sawa? Hii oath of office ambayo alichukua, je, makamu wa rais ambaye ameshikilia sahihi hiyo nafasi, je, anafanya kulingana na matarajio ya katiba ya Kenya? Hii ndiyo maswali ambayo tunataka tukayaongee mbele ya wabunge wa Senate na Kenya mzima isikize.
So like we said, this is a political process. I mean, you know, no one's a saint, I think, in the matters around this talk of impeachment. I mean, when he's being, you know, accused of being a tribal leader and speaking in his mother tongue, the Deputy Speaker, in that soundbite that we just played, we had to extract just a very short part of it because, like you said, Jamila, she did speak in native language, you know, before that. I mean, from the beginning, once these two were sworn in as President and Deputy, the Deputy has been saying some rather incendiary things when he was making the statements about shareholders, which caused uproar in the country. I mean, everybody was horrified by these statements. President never said anything, at least not publicly anyway. We don't know. Perhaps he repudiated him in private. But all of these things he's been saying, and suddenly now, you know, I sat here with former Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria, who said he's divisive and they disagree with his talk. But he went on. for a year and more. And now we're talking about, a censure motion, and to talk about whether he's only doing this for one community and not for others. But censure motion, so what is this? Are they just ranting and raving? Because this has no basis, like in law. So what's a censure motion and what is the outcome, Linus? So they go to Senate and then they say, yeah, he's this, he's that, he's done this, or he's not done that, he's kneel before me or whatever. And then what?
Informal. Like, yes, informal too. It doesn't, censure is just sort of to tell him that you got it wrong. It doesn't have well, in other places, a censure motion actually can cause you to resign. But not here. Not in Kenya. That is
not here. We don't do that here.
No, we don't do that. No. Unless the censure is actually physical.
Like a flogging in public.
Yes, it doesn't happen that way. But to the point that you're raising about the things that Rigathi Gachagua now is getting accused of, he has done this all through. You just need to remember the campaign and how he positioned it. He was unapologetic about the regional patterns of their political base. And if you remember, at one time he went during the Jubilee, not just UDA nominations in the Rift Valley, and said you cannot be independent candidates. You have to all belong to UDA. So he was a very effective partisan. And I think UDA really enjoyed his services at that time. And also, I don't know how to put this very politely, but the deputy president, especially during the swearing in, demonstrated his capacity for a lower embarrassment quotient. You know, he can say things in the name of the truth, but there'll be people who will be careful about, should I say that in front of others?
Yeah.
And we all remember when you were brought up, how your mom can just look at you.
Nyamaza.
Nyamaza. There was a lot of that was necessary in Kasarani. But you remember the wild cheers he got.
Yeah.
So, and he styles himself as a truthful man. So, is he the guy who basically professes his positions, while those others who are cheering and keeping quiet are doing exactly the same things, but quietly? And remember, there was a very damning report. If you remember the recruitment of Kenya Revenue Authority clerks, there were 1,406 positions national for the Kenya Revenue Authority.
Kenya.
785 of that. Oof. That is some with your maths.
It's upwards of
50%. Were from Kikuyu and Kalenjin. Nobody in the UDA administration thought that was an issue.
Shareholders.
Shareholders. And Gachagua said, shareholders, pick your number, stay behind the queue, it's those who voted this way that will get first. So there's a lot of hypocrisy that will be witnessed in this conversation. But for those who respect facts, this is a situation of all falling short of glory, but looks like they'll fall off the stable one at a time.
And Yvonne, I think during the interview with Gituk, one of the things that the Deputy President said was, if there's an impeachment motion, it will happen with the President's blessings. He alluded to that Rais atakuwa anajua if this goes ahead. And some people will say, well, what if this happens? What are options that the Deputy President has? There's those who are saying you should maybe resign. Others are saying maybe he should now mount a political defense and try and, rally support in Parliament and try and get the numbers on his side. Or there are those who say maybe it's not too late for him to negotiate with the President to try and resolve whatever disagreements they may have. And I keep remembering during the interview also, Gituku, that he said that the President should try and call his house to order and try and avert whatever it is that's going to happen. But then now, if you look at it, impeachment is not easy. It's not a walk in the park. It could have very, very serious consequences for the deputy president if he is removed. Of course, we're not saying it will happen. The process has not even, as Lina said, they have not even tabled it. But if it happens, it can even include ending his political career. Because if you look at what the Constitution says, Article 75(3 states that a person who has been removed from office by impeachment or otherwise is disqualified from holding any other public office. So if that happens, then it will mean he's unlikely to seek any elective position, including the presidency in 2027. If that happens,
Jamila,
should he decide to contest?
Do we live in the same country?
But
but even if it does happen, you think this will be the end of his...
Yeah. No, he cannot run.
He cannot run.
No, that's fine.
But Yvonne, of course, the process as it is, Lina's talked about it, and Article 150 of the Constitution should be supported by 1/3 of the members, which is 117, and then 233 members of the National Assembly for it to be passed. So it's not easy. And then go to the Senate, of course, and do all that.
But I have a question. If, let's say it comes to that, does he not have recourse in court?
In court. That's what I was going there. I was saying, he has a recourse in court. He can actually go to
okay, because let me remind you that there is a member of National Assembly who was jailed for, is it 57 or 67?
John
Waluke, yes.
Yeah. Ideally, once you are convicted of a crime like that, you shouldn't hold office. Yeah. But
there you go.
Under the law, to be fair, he's appealing that, and you see what happens. But this is what happens in this country. This will happen. You can go to court. You will seek leave of the court. You will get an injunction. You will, because the matter is under appeal, and then you'll go perhaps all the way to the Supreme Court. We saw it with Governor Wambora. He held on, and not once, not twice. And so it's just sometimes these political matters are interesting.
Even though I think because the Constitution is quite clear that once the Senate pronounces itself by two-thirds majority and says that the impeachment allegations have been confirmed, then of course the Constitution talks about the president ceases to hold office, but also you apply the same clauses, Article 145 for the deputy president. So once the Senate pronounces itself, the deputy president ceases to hold office. Of course, he may go to court to stop probably the implementation of that decision, but I wonder what would make him go back to the office unless the court finds that the procedure was wrong or the process that was followed was wrong. Yeah. Otherwise, a decision of the Senate on impeachment of a deputy president, I'm not sure it is able to overturn that. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that if you listen to the deputy president and really putting this at the doorstep of the president, telling him it is time to put your house in order, both at the cabinet, at the party, and of course the nation at large, it clearly shows you he has decided who he's targeting. When you're listening to the deputy speaker, is there a deputy versus a deputy? Maybe there's something wrong with being a deputy. I don't know. But it doesn't sound good. I mean, it stinks, if I should say that, if I should use that word, that you have an institution that should actually be there waiting to hear what is the executive doing that we need to oversight. Right. Now you have the legislature or members of the legislature, the ones that are propagating the agenda of what to fix to protect the president. Of course, the Constitution talks about a member of the National Assembly can present a motion backed by the 1/3. But at the same time, it is quite disheartening that you'd find very senior leaders, that they're the ones who are propagating such an agenda. Well, they should actually be waiting to be convinced by the move of the motion that actually this is a direction that needs to be taken. But probably we are just dreaming to expect that to happen in such a situation. But also the censure motion, it may be just a lecture to sort of show the deputy president that we know what you're doing. But,
we can humble you.
But there's another value. Probably they have realized there's a challenge in the Senate. Maybe they need to whip the senators. You need to rally the senators in preparedness for the motion when it comes. Because again, the deputy president just needs 23 senators to survive the impeachment motion of the Senate. Because if you talk about 67 senators, you need 2/3, which is 45 for you to impeach. If he gets, so 45 minus from 67 is 22. If he gets just one senator, 23. And he stays in office. And of course, that way he would survive. But also there's something that he has been doing. He has realized that he's unwanted in this regime or in this administration, and he has been very busy on the ground. When you find a lot of members of parliament speaking out and saying, including those that come from the Mount Kenya region, and saying that they would support that motion, some are saying that the motion is here, and I spoke to some of them and they were saying that it is either they take him home or he takes them home in the next election. So they are choosing the battles. But if you look at what he has done in the mountain, sort of almost radicalized the region to an extent that he believes that William Ruto is a problem to them. He has been saying that we trusted, and this is a quote, we trusted him without even an MOU. When he went to speak to Amason Kingi, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, Alfred Mutua, and all the other persons that lead different parties, there were MOUs that were signed. He says that from Mount Kenya region, we trusted him without a document. But then remember, they were all members of the UDA party. Who crafted the UDA party?
Right.
It is William Samoei Ruto. So they were coming to him because they needed to win an election.
So who's the shareholder there?
That party.
It's one.
Mwenyewe.
Well, with 100%.
You know, if you look for ownership of a company from the Register of Companies, you're given a response that has directors of a company. Some directors are shareholders, some are just directors without shares.
Yes.
So you may want to imagine what that means when you have a situation where a lot of leaders in Mount Kenya believe that for you to be elected, you needed to be in the UDA party. And there are several that are in the Azimio side. I would have mentioned names, wait not for time. Well, but people moved from the Azimio party to the UDA because they needed to be elected. So you need to also question yourself, what decision did you take in 2022 and what consequences are you dealing with right now, so that even as the country prepares for future elections, even right now we're dealing with so many serious challenges, and we'll be talking about some of them in the next conversation, but also Kenyans have to think about what exactly are you taking as a decision that is going to move you to the next level as you continue to live your life. So it's going to be very interesting days. Also, I take note that the members of parliament have just been saying it is coming, it is a done deal, a decision has been reached, the signatures
Numbers
are enough,
of signatures
but
are
nobody
running
has
around.
shown an impeachment motion, even though it has to be tabled. Of course, the speaker has to approve and say this meets the threshold set out in the constitution and the standing orders. But also, it would be strange for a people to begin impeachment of a deputy president when the president is not in the country.
Arudi kwanza.
So when he comes back, we should start to watch and see what happens while he's here.
Okay. Just to note that he made his speech at Unga today, this afternoon. So who knows whether he's on his way back. Look, Sam, you mentioned...
So I wanted to say something just before you carry on. If you look at that conversation about shareholding, it annoyed a lot of Kenyans, including Raila Odinga, who now is in the broad-based government. And it was also backed by the appointments that had been made for principal secretaries. I think majority were from the Mount Kenya region and Rift Valley. Who made those appointments? Is it Rigathi Gachagua? They carry the signature of the president. There were CSs that had been appointed, later nullified by the court because they didn't follow the due procedure.
The CASs?
CASs, yes, Chief Administrative Secretaries, appointed by the president.
Right.
The KRA officials that Linas talks about here, the revenue officers, they were appointed by the Kenya Revenue Authority, which is headed by management and a board appointed
by
the president.
So his signature is on all of them.
So we need to think, what carries weight? Is it word or action?
Or deed.
With this administration, we've seen interesting things. Let's talk about, what's really going on in this country.